The journey of life is often described through grand metaphors, but when we cut through the noise, what does it all come down to? What is the single, most important currency we possess in our relationship with the divine? It's not about the length of our prayers, the volume of our devotion, or the sheer quantity of scripture we consume. No, the Bible is strikingly clear on this point. What truly pleases God, what truly moves the heart of the Creator, is faith. It is faith that He seeks. It is faith that He rewards. It is the simple, yet profound act of belief that draws us into His embrace. God loves the person who believes. He loves the spirit that leans not on its own understanding, but on the certainty of His word. This isn't a passive concept. This isn't just a nod of agreement on a Sunday morning. Faith, as I've come to understand it, is a dynamic, living force, a life of action, fundamentally based on what we believe to be eternally and immutably true. Think about it for a moment. Are you standing in faith? Are you living by faith? Are you walking by faith? The evidence of this act of faith is seen not in what we do, but sometimes, paradoxically, in what we refrain from doing. Take, for example, the action of not worrying. When anxiety knocks on the door of your heart, and you refuse to open it, that refusal is a result of having the deep-seated faith that God is in complete control. The tendency to constantly grab the reins, to feel compelled to fix every single problem in your life, is a natural human impulse. But the action of letting go, of not trying to fix everything yourself, that too is a direct result of your faith. It's the confident assertion that the Lord of the universe holds the ultimate blueprint. This is why Christ Himself told us, with such gentle authority, "Let not your hearts be troubled." He did not say this because He wanted us to be passive or indifferent. He said it because He desires us to exercise the radical faith that allows Him to take care of all our needs, the profound, the practical, and the seemingly impossible. We need a clear definition of faith, one that simplifies the concept and makes it actionable in our daily lives. I've found that faith can be beautifully and powerfully summed up in this simple equation. Faith is doing your part, which is trusting God to do His part. It clarifies the roles, doesn't it? It removes the confusion over where our responsibility ends and where His begins. Our part is to believe. That is the entry point. That is the initial act of surrender and trust. That is the only coin we need to possess. We believe, and then we leave God to do His part, the part involving miracles, the bending of time and circumstance, the orchestration of the cosmos. Your part is to stand on God's word, to take His promises, the bedrock assurances that nothing is impossible with Him, and use them as your foundation. So, I have to ask you, and I often ask myself, are you doing your part? Are you actively believing? Are you taking your stand on the immutable word of God? Are you choosing to walk by faith? Or are you retreating to the easier path of walking by sight, where only the immediate and fleeting circumstance holds sway? This kind of foundational, resilient faith, the kind that stands firm when the world is shaking, does not just appear overnight. It is cultivated, it is developed, and it is forged in the fires of experience and commitment. Strong faith, first and foremost, comes from knowing and believing in the victory of Jesus Christ. It's more than just accepting that He rose from the dead. It is internalizing the monumental truth that in that resurrection, He defeated the devil, He defeated death, He defeated hell, and He defeated the power of the grave. The battle has already been won. We are simply living in the aftermath of a decisive victory. Secondly, strong faith is cultivated through a deep, ongoing engagement with Scripture. It comes from meditating on God's Word. This is a step beyond simple reading. It's not enough to check off a chapter on a reading plan. We must internalize it. We must ponder on it. We must dwell on it until it becomes less a collection of ancient texts and more the very breath of our spiritual lives. And here is perhaps the most challenging, yet most potent, catalyst for robust faith: great trials. The Apostle James lays out this radical truth for us in his first chapter. He tells us, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." Think about the profound implications of that passage. The test of faith is not an obstacle. it is an opportunity. The pressure of hardship is not meant to break you. It is the refining heat meant to grow your endurance. It is the path to becoming complete, whole, and lacking nothing. No matter the nature of your hardship, the pain, the diagnosis, the financial abyss, be strong in faith. Do not allow yourself to be moved, because the moment you let go of God's sure, this world, the one we navigate every day, is defined by its ephemerality. Everything is in motion. Everything is changing. Circumstances change. People change. Social norms and public perceptions shift like sand dunes in a desert storm. This constant flux leaves us with nothing solid to grasp, nothing truly reliable to stand upon. This is why we turn to the only sure foundation, Jesus Christ. He is our steadfast anchor. In the midst of a fickle and ever-changing existence, the Word of God remains true forever. In the book of Matthew, Jesus himself declared, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." This is the guarantee of eternal stability. This permanence is the reason we can stand confidently in Him. This is why, when we feel the ground slipping away, when the chaos of life threatens to pull us under, we can cling to Him. And when we do, He will rescue us. He will not just save us from the situation. He will place our feet back on solid, unshakable ground. If life delivers a blow that knocks you down, wouldn't it be infinitely better to fall into the loving, all-powerful arms of Jesus Christ than anywhere else? The choice is simple: fall into chaos or fall into grace. Therefore, do not allow yourself to be defined by a medical diagnosis, which is merely a snapshot of a moment. Do not be defined by the numbers in your bank account, which are transient and variable. I have had to have these conversations with myself. I have had to look in the mirror and remind myself of the fundamental truth. I have a Creator who has a plan, and God's plan will prevail. God's will be done. He has ordered my steps. I am not alone. My beginning and my end are known by Him. Your highs and your lows are known by Him. And I will continue to walk by faith and not by sight, believing with absolute conviction that the Lord has numbered my good days to exceed my bad days. The goal, then, is to reach a point of profound contentment and peace, a state where your soul can genuinely declare, "Lord, my life is in your hands." This is the ultimate surrender of anxiety. It is the recognition that the responsibility for sustaining your life does not, and never did, rest upon your shoulders. You see, the Lord didn't just offer a suggestion when He commanded us to be anxious for nothing. He gave us a freedom. He wants us to walk liberated from the crippling weight of worry. Why? Because He knows us intimately. He said He knows the very number of hairs on your head. If the details of your physical life are known to that degree, how much more is the landscape of your entire future known and secured by Him? And so, we surrender. We yield to His will. This surrender is not defeat. It is the truest victory. It is the act of standing down so that the Almighty can stand up on your behalf. I want to pivot now and speak specifically on the practical topic of standing strong in the Lord, standing strong in faith. I'll begin with a statement that I believe every person listening can wholeheartedly agree with. If there is one thing we can be absolutely certain about in this life, it is the fact that life is often maddeningly unpredictable. One moment, you are riding a high, feeling invincible, and the next, you come crashing down. One moment, there is peace, safety, and comfort, and in the next, it feels as though all hell has broken loose. You can be at the top of the mountain 1 minute, and suddenly, you find yourself walking through the valley of the shadow of death the very next. Coming to terms with the reality of life's unpredictability is crucial to developing a mature faith. But here is the anchor point. Here is the blessing that allows us to navigate this ever-changing terrain. I am profoundly grateful that in this chaotic, ever-changing life, we serve a never-changing God. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He doesn't change. He healed thousands of years ago when He walked this earth, and He still heals today. He loved those who were considered unlovable, the outcasts, the rejects of society, and He still loves those very same people today. When His disciples were caught in a terrifying storm, He spoke 2 simple, yet terrifyingly powerful words: "Peace, be still," and the storm bowed down. I believe with every fiber of my being that He can and will speak those very same words into the middle of your storm today. That is why, when life happens, when the unpredictable moment arrives, you can stand strong in the Lord. Do not allow life's challenges, no matter how daunting, to shake your faith in God. Stand strong, plant your feet, and let Him fight your battles. He has promised us, in no uncertain terms, that the deep waters won't drown us. He has assured us that when we go through the fire, we will not be burned. Whether you find yourself today in the lion's den, surrounded by roaring threats, or facing the metaphorical Pharaoh tomorrow, stand strong in your deliverer, who is Jesus Christ. We can trust Him. We can rely on Him. We can depend on Him. We must learn to stand strong in the Lord. Now, let me be honest. I am not saying this journey will be easy. I am not suggesting that you will not have moments of doubt, moments of pain, or moments where you feel pressed beyond your limits. I have been there. I have had those internal, frustrated conversations. Really, God? I've just come out of one thing, and now here is another, even tougher challenge. When we talk about standing strong in the Lord, we are not talking about a life free from adversity. But what I am saying is this: when your back is against the wall and the world demands a choice, wouldn't you rather fall into the sovereign, loving arms of the Lord than simply fall while trying to do things your own, flawed way? When the pressure mounts, wouldn't you rather lean on God's omniscient understanding than on your own limited, anxious one? As we face life's challenges, the first impulse might be to surrender, to simply give up, to let the current drag you away. And I understand the exhaustion that leads to that question, the point of just asking, God, why me? Why am I not married yet? Why did I have to be sick? Why can't I make as much money as they are? While we may be stressed and pressed on every side, I want to offer you a different formula, a powerful choice for those moments of crisis. I want to encourage you, with all the conviction I possess, to stand strong in the Lord. Why should you stand strong? Because He is the one who goes before you. He has promised, explicitly, that He will not fail you nor forsake you. And that, my friends, makes Him so utterly dependable that it should give you the tenacity, the spiritual grit, to stand strong in faith until the end. Our Lord has a track record that is unmatched, a history of faithfulness that has stood the absolute test of time. Therefore, despite the chaos swirling around you, despite everyone else seemingly getting married or landing that dream job, despite that job interview coming back as a definite no, keep standing strong in the Lord. He who started a good work in you will surely see it through to the end. That is His promise, His character, and His commitment to you. How do we access this power? By doing our part. Reach out to Him by faith. Be constant in prayer. Be relentless in your faith. And watch Him move in ways that seem utterly and wonderfully impossible to the natural eye. This is not a quick fix. This is a commitment that requires persistence. You need a spiritual tenacity to stand strong in the Lord, to stand and believe, to stand and wait patiently for what He has promised. Because when you take your stand, you are making a powerful declaration. You are assuring yourself that no temptation, no trial, no crisis can ultimately overtake you. You are making it known to the enemy that you trust God to have already provided a way of escape, even if you cannot see it yet with your physical eyes. You are guaranteed victory when you stand strong in the Lord. The thing about standing strong in God is that it does take practice. It takes a maturity of faith that is earned through experience and devotion. Think of it as a muscle. You go through one trial, and God makes a way. Your faith is exercised. You go through a tougher trial, and your belief is tested, but now it is stronger. Yet, God still makes a way. Each victory is a step in the maturing of your faith. One of the essential keys to growth in your faith in God is that it takes you actively and consistently cultivating a deep, personal relationship with Jesus Christ. He doesn't hold you at arm's length. He invites you to know Him. He invites you to seek, to knock, and to ask. But with that invitation, your effort is required. You have to make the effort. You have to discipline yourself to read His Word daily. You have to pray daily. It takes a daily communion with Him. You must intentionally count your blessings. You must actively shift your perspective so that you are filled with genuine thanksgiving for all that He has already done. And here is why this daily commitment is so critically important. When you make prayer your regular practice, when you practice not just reading the Word, but living the Word, when you sincerely appreciate God's goodness. This renews your faith in Him each day. This is the ongoing maturation of your faith, lived out day by day. When you then come to face tough times, and you will, His Word is already deeply ingrained in you. Prayer is already a part of your lifestyle. You have a proven, personal relationship with the Lord. This is the moment when you can truly stand strong. This is how you fortify your spirit, so that when the enemy surrounds you like an overwhelming flood, you will be able to stand immovable in the Lord. I can assure you, with absolute certainty, when you have an established relationship with Jesus Christ, you will find that it becomes much easier to stand and be strong. It will become your default stance, your reflexive posture, to trust God and to run to hide and find refuge in Him. So, my encouragement to you today is simple, yet life-altering. If you haven't already, start cultivating that relationship with the Lord today. Do it now, so that when the troubles inevitably come, and they will come, you will be not just ready, but able to stand strong in the Lord.
1897, I was led to the dusty, sun-baked center of the chalky Madad Market Square in Kandahar to be executed for leaving Islam. The sword was raised high above my neck by a man in a black turban, and the expectant crowd, a sea of anxious faces, fell into a fearful silence. But before the blade could fall, the mountains themselves seemed to rise up in fury. A sudden, violent, red dust wind, a Gardabi, swept down from the Hindu Kush, blinding everyone in its path. People cried out and scattered, hands instinctively covering their eyes. The executioner was forced to turn away. I should have died that day, crushed beneath the unforgiving hand of tradition. But God had another plan. Let me tell you how a Pashtun noble who once bowed before the power of the tribal elders came to bow before the living Christ. I am the third son of a distant cousin to the powerful Khan Abdul Karim, which meant I was born into a family of significant influence, though not into the immediate line of succession for the highest authority. From the day I was born, my life was an intricate tapestry woven from deep Pashtunwali tradition, immense wealth, and unyielding religious law. I grew up inside the high mud brick walls of our Kala fortress, where Persian rugs covered the floors and the air cooling system brought in water from the ancient Keras channels, keeping us cool in the desert heat. Servants bowed low when I walked past. Guards with rifles stood watch at every gate. My father, Malik Shah, was a respected leader, known for his unshakable devotion to Islam and his fierce loyalty to our clan. My mother was a woman of quiet strength and profound kindness. From her, I learned compassion. From my father, I learned absolute discipline. My earliest memories were of the small, ornate family mosque inside our Kala, where I began learning the Quran when I was only 4. Every morning before the first light, my teacher, Maulana Firaz, would sit with me and my older brothers. He had a deep, resonant voice and eyes that held both severity and wisdom. He would say, "Muhammad, remember, every verse of Allah you commit to memory will shine like a light in your soul on the day of judgment." I longed for that light. So I worked hard. By the time I was 10, I could recite long surahs from memory, and my father was proud. We prayed 5 times a day, strictly observed the fast of Ramadan, and gave zakat to the poor. Religion in our house was not just faith. It was the foundation of our life, our culture, and our identity. I never questioned it. I only knew that being a good Muslim meant obeying, respecting, and serving. Life within the family compound was like living in an older, more shielded world. We had private tutors for every subject: mathematics, science, English, history, and Quranic studies. My days were a mix of lessons, falconry, and ceremonial gatherings. I rode horses in the private courtyard, learned to shoot accurately from our military advisors, and was taught the complex art of Pashtun leadership. Everyone told me that one day I would serve as a high-ranking official or an advisor in the province's administration. I was expected to be resilient, confident, and wise. Yet, even as a teenager, when I had everything a young man could possibly want, fine horses, dedicated servants, and absolute respect, something inside me felt profoundly empty. I couldn't explain it then. It was like sitting down to a lavish Dastrakhan feast, with 1,000 dishes, yet having lost all appetite. At night, when the Kala became silent and the pale lights of Kandahar twinkled faintly against the desert horizon, I often sat by my window and looked out. I would see the empty plains and the mountain range stretching endlessly under the cold moonlight, and wonder what lay beyond them. I was supposed to feel blessed, and I did. But I also felt utterly trapped. Everything in my life had been decided for me: what I would believe, which cousin I would marry, what powerful position I would hold. Sometimes I would whisper into the darkness, "Ya Allah, is this all there is? Is this the only path life can take?" But I quickly pushed those thoughts away, fearing they were blasphemous. My father, Malik Shah, was a man of both prayer and power. He loved Allah deeply and demanded the same deep devotion from his sons. He often took me to meet important religious and political leaders in Kandahar. One of them, Mullah Akbar, once said to me, "Muhammad, never forget that our strength as Pashtun and Muslims is our complete obedience to Allah's laws and the path of the Prophet. Without Islam, we are nothing." I nodded respectfully, but something in his tone made me uneasy. He spoke of obedience, but never of peace. He spoke of power, but rarely of love. That night I couldn't sleep. I began to notice how fear often guided people's lives: fear of sin, fear of shame, fear of the judgment of man. I respected our faith, but I wondered why it felt so heavy on the heart. As I grew older, my responsibilities increased. I attended tribal jirgas, assemblies, met with visiting officials, and learned to speak fluent English from the few Western tutors who came to the city. I loved reading about the world outside Afghanistan. My favorite subjects were history and philosophy, and I enjoyed asking hard questions. But in our world, questions could be very dangerous. When I was 22, my father told me I had been chosen to continue my studies abroad. "You will study political science at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon," he said, his face full of pride. "Learn what you can, but never forget who you are. A son of Islam and a noble of Kandahar." I promised him I would not forget. Leaving Afghanistan for the first time felt like stepping out of a gilded prison. I remember the day I boarded the plane. My mother hugged me tightly and whispered, "Muhammad, keep your faith strong. The world is full of distractions and temptations." My father simply nodded, confident that I was too disciplined to stray. I carried with me the Quran, my prayer beads, and a heart full of mixed feelings: excitement, fear, and a burning, secret curiosity. I didn't know that the journey I was starting would plant the first, nearly imperceptible seeds of change in my soul. In Beirut, Lebanon, everything was different. The air felt lighter and carried the salt of the sea. People spoke freely, laughed loudly in the cafes, and questioned everything, from politics to religion. I was not treated like a young noble. I was just another student. At first, it was strange. No one called me Sahib, sir, or bowed. I had to do simple things for myself: wash my own clothes, navigate the bustling city, and manage my own small apartment. But instead of feeling insulted by this reduction in status, I felt immensely free. I could walk down the street completely unnoticed. I could sit in a coffee shop and talk with anyone, about anything. For the first time in my life, I saw how ordinary people lived, and I found I truly liked it. Even though my faith remained strong, I was naturally curious about the beliefs of others. Many of my classmates were Christians, and I was surprised by how genuinely kind and sincere they were. One of them, a student from Egypt named Elias, often invited me to join group study discussions after class. He never once argued about religion or tried to convert me. He simply shared stories of hope, selfless living, and forgiveness that he read from his Bible. Sometimes he would say, "Brother Muhammad, the path of our Lord Jesus teaches us to love even those who hate us." I found those words deeply arresting. In Islam, we are taught mercy, too, but this kind of love, loving those who actively seek your harm, was something I couldn't begin to understand at that time. During the month of Ramadan, some of my Christian friends, including Elias, would even skip lunch and fast with me out of simple respect for my faith. That gesture touched me deeply. They didn't worship Allah, but they honored my commitment. One Sunday, driven entirely by curiosity, I accepted Elias's invitation to attend a small church service. I remember sitting quietly in the back as people sang songs about God's love and eternal peace. They lifted their hands, many smiling, some with tears streaming down their faces. I didn't understand the language of the songs, but I could feel something tangible, a peace that filled the simple room. I kept wondering, why do these people look so deeply joyful? Their happiness was not from wealth or power, it seemed to come from a source far deeper and more personal. I did not become a Christian then, but something crucial began to stir inside me. 4 years in Beirut changed me in ways I had never anticipated. I learned about true civic freedom, compassion, and the quiet dignity of humility. I studied hard, graduated with honors, and earned the respect of my professors. But more importantly, I learned to see people simply as human beings, not as Muslims, Christians, or foreigners, but as people with hearts, struggles, and dreams. My friends from different backgrounds never judged me for being Muslim. They showed me unconditional kindness without any expectation of return. I realized that true faith could exist without fear. It could inspire profound peace instead of intense pressure. I didn't yet understand it fully, but I carried that powerful thought home with me like a carefully hidden, invaluable treasure. When I returned to Kandahar after graduation, the city looked exactly the same. The Kaaba was still imposing, the call to prayer still echoed from the minarets, and the rules of the Pashtunwali were as strict as ever. But I did not feel the same. The life that once felt normal began to feel incredibly empty. I had tasted a different kind of freedom, one that came not from rebellion but from a fundamental change in my own understanding. I still prayed to Allah 5 times a day. But now, my prayers felt quieter, more personal, and heavy with my unspoken questions. I didn't want to lose my faith. I desperately wanted to understand it truly. Yet, the more I searched for a deeper meaning, the more restless and spiritually dissatisfied I became. My father, Malik Shah, soon noticed the subtle change in me. One evening during dinner he said, "Muhammad, you have been too reserved lately. Have your years in the West made you soft? Have they caused you to forget your obligations?" I forced a polite smile and said, "No, father. They have simply forced me to think more deeply." He frowned, clearly uncomfortable with my answer. "Too much thinking can be dangerous," he warned, his voice low and firm. "Faith requires obedience, not endless speculation." I nodded, keeping my gaze respectful. But in my heart I knew that silence, the refusal to ask the soul's deepest questions, was the truly dangerous thing. Something vital inside me was awakening, a desire to know the absolute truth, not just the family tradition. That night, as I lay in my enormous bed, I remembered Elias's gentle words about love and forgiveness. I remembered the radiant peace I had seen on the faces of people praying to Jesus. I didn't yet believe as they did, but I simply could not forget what I had witnessed. The high walls of the Kaaba no longer offered comfort. They reminded me of everything I now questioned. I wanted to know God not only through ritual and law, but through a genuine, heartfelt relationship. As I drifted towards sleep, I looked out my window at the same ancient, silent desert that had surrounded me since birth. It was vast, quiet, and stunningly beautiful. And somewhere in that profound silence, a single question rose from the deepest part of my soul, a question that would change the course of my entire life, leading to the sword at Chowki Madad. Ya Allah, show me who you truly are. The morning after that prayer, I woke up feeling profoundly altered. I couldn't explain it, but something fundamental had shifted. I looked around my room, the silk curtains, the heavy carpets, the walls decorated with family history. Everything was the same, but it no longer felt like my only home. It was as if my spiritual eyes had opened for the very first time. I realized that my entire life had been surrounded by beauty and luxury, but I had never truly seen it. I wanted to know God in a deeper, more immediate way, to understand what the truth really was. That quiet, desperate prayer I had whispered the night before stayed with me like an unshakable echo. It was a small prayer, but it set me on a journey that would cost me everything I had. After a few months at home, I received a letter from the American University of Beirut inviting me to attend a high-level alumni conference. It was a rare honor, and my father allowed me to go. "Represent our family with honor, Muhammad," he instructed. "You represent our country and our faith." I nodded respectfully, but I was secretly thrilled to breathe the free air of the wider world again. When my plane landed, a profound sense of calm settled over me. It felt like stepping back into a world where I could think without the pressure of the family name. During the conference, I met old friends, including Elias, my Egyptian classmate, whose face lit up when he saw me. "Muhammad, my brother!" he exclaimed, pulling me into a warm embrace. Elias had a way of making everyone feel instantly welcome and safe. He introduced me to some of his friends, all simple, kind people whose quiet joy and peace seemed to fill the room effortlessly. As we talked, I again noticed how naturally they spoke about faith, hope, and love. It wasn't forced or political. It was as natural as breathing. I hadn't realized how much I missed that kind of intellectual and spiritual openness. One evening, Elias invited me to a small dinner with some of his Christian friends. We ate simple food, sharing stories and laughter. They spoke about their lives, their families, and the hope they found in their faith. When it was my turn, I told them about growing up in Kandahar, the weight of the family name, and the emptiness I still felt. When I finished, Elias said softly, "Muhammad, I remember you once told me you wanted to understand God more deeply. Do you still feel that way?" His direct question caught me off guard. I paused, looking down at my hands. "Yes, I do," I admitted. "I pray every day, but sometimes I truly feel like my prayers only reach the ceiling of our kala." Everyone grew quiet, and then Elias smiled. "Maybe God is closer than you think, my friend." After dinner, a kind Lebanese girl named Sanaa handed me a small, simple book. It was a copy of the Gospel of John. She smiled and said, "You don't have to read it if you're not ready. But if you ever want to know what we believe, this is where you should begin." I looked at the book in my hands, feeling a mix of consuming curiosity and deep fear. In Kandahar, even possessing such a text could lead to disaster. But here, in this free land, it was just a small book, simple, quiet, and peaceful. That night, in my hotel room, I opened it for the first time. The first words I read were, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." I didn't understand everything, but the words held a strange and powerful gravity. They forced me to think about who God, Allah, really was. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that single verse. I continued reading quietly each night. The stories of Jesus, healing the sick, eating with sinners, speaking with absolute authority and love, completely amazed me. I found myself wondering, could Allah really be like this? Full of profound mercy and grace, not just righteous judgment? I told no one what I was reading, not even Elias. I still prayed to Allah, still performed my 5 daily prayers, but my heart was now asking a dangerous, revolutionary question. I wanted to understand how this Jesus could speak with such absolute compassion and still wield such powerful authority. When the conference ended, Elias and his friends invited me to attend one last gathering. They called it a small Bible study. It was held in a simple, brightly lit hall. The group was small, and they were singing softly, their voices blending in sincere praise. I didn't know the songs, but the deep, quiet peace in the room was overwhelming. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a noble, a Muslim, or a visitor. I just felt human, small, perhaps, but profoundly loved. After the song ended, an older man stood to speak. He said, "Sometimes we search for God in ritual, rules, or great knowledge. But God simply wants us to know Him as a father." The word father struck a chord deep inside me. I thought of Malik Shah, my own father, powerful, respected, but always distant. I had always loved him, but I never truly felt close to him. Could it be that God wanted to be close to me in that same simple way, like a loving, accessible father? The idea seemed impossible, yet overwhelmingly beautiful. That night, I fell to my knees in my hotel room and prayed quietly, using all the respect and reverence I knew from my upbringing. Ya Allah, I don't understand everything, I prayed. But if you are truly more than I have known, show me the way to that peace. When I flew back to Kandahar a few days later, I carried that small Gospel of John hidden inside my traditional shalwar kameez. I didn't read it publicly, but I could not bring myself to leave it behind. It wasn't an act of rebellion, it was an act of desperate spiritual hunger. I wanted to know the God I had seen reflected in Elias and his friends, the God who gave true peace, not the demanding obligation born of fear. Back in Kandahar, my life returned to its royal routine. The guards still bowed. The call to prayer still echoed. But inside me, everything had changed. My heart was awake, and the old ways no longer satisfied my soul. Every prayer I now offered to Allah came with a silent, dangerous rider. Are you the same God who loves like Jesus loved? The days leading up to the Market Square execution were a blur of growing family suspicion and rising fear. My father, frustrated by my quiet withdrawal and refusal to agree to an arranged marriage, eventually discovered the book. The consequences were immediate, severe, and absolute. I was held for 3 days in a dark storeroom. On the 4th morning, my father stood before me, his face a mask of grief and fury. You have shamed us, Muhammad. You have turned your back on your blood, your faith, and your duty. There is only one path for those who abandon Islam. I looked at him, no longer feeling fear, but a quiet, immense sorrow for his pain. Father, I said softly, the words coming from a place deeper than my own voice. I did not find a new path. The truth found me. I have found the peace I always searched for. He did not reply. He simply turned and ordered the guards to take me. And so, I stood in the dust of Chowki Madad, the sword raised high above my neck. The crowd was silent, and the sun beat down on the dried clay. I closed my eyes and whispered a final prayer, not to a distant master, but to the loving Father I had found. Into your hands I commit my spirit, Jesus. Then came the furious, blinding red dust storm, the Gardabi, a massive curtain of wind and sand that screamed down from the mountains and stopped the hand of the executioner. In the chaos, the guards scattered, covering their faces. I felt a powerful hand grip my arm and pull me violently out of the square and into a waiting jeep. The face of the man who saved me was covered in a dusty scarf, but his eyes were kind. As we sped through the narrow, chaotic streets, he shouted over the roar of the wind, "Go, Muhammad! Go and tell the world what the living word has done!" I never saw his face again. He was gone as quickly as the storm itself. I spent the next 3 years as a wandering exile, eventually making my way safely out of Afghanistan. Today, I live in a world where I am not a noble and have no wealth, but I have the peace that Jesus promised. The path was costly. It cost me my family, my title, and my homeland. But I would trade the entire kingdom of Kandahar for the joy of knowing the Father. The golden cage is broken, and the light I searched for now shines unbroken in my soul. And that is my story, the journey of Muhammad, from the golden cages of Kandahar to the freedom found in Christ.
Have you ever carried something so heavy you forgot what it felt like to be light? I'm not talking about a physical burden. I'm talking about a person. Or rather, the jagged, frozen ghost of what a person did to you. For 3 long, agonizing years, I carried a man named Marcus in my chest. I didn't carry him with love, or even with a lingering sense of loss. I carried him with a resentment so sharp it dictated every breath I took. I used to wake up at 4 a.m., my heart already racing, rehearsing arguments I would never have. I used to walk through the grocery store and see a car that looked like his, and my hands would start to shake on the steering wheel. I thought my anger was my armor. I believed that as long as I stayed furious, I was somehow keeping the scales of justice balanced. I thought that if I let go of that grudge, I was letting him win. But here is the secret they don't tell you about revenge: when you drink poison to kill your enemy, you're the only one who dies. Today, I want to tell you how I stopped dying. I want to take you through the architecture of a betrayal, the long winter of a soul, and the day I discovered that forgiveness isn't a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is the secret, explosive joy of finally giving yourself permission to breathe again. This isn't a story about being a saint. It's a story about being a survivor who decided that her peace was worth more than her pride. To understand the joy, you have to understand the theft. Marcus and I weren't just business partners, we were the kind of friends who finish each other's sentences. We met in a cramped design studio during our final year of university. While everyone else was out at the bars, we were hunched over drafting tables, arguing about the environmental impact of urban sprawl. We built the greenhouse from nothing. We started in my garage with 2 mismatched laptops, a stack of blueprints, and a shared dream of making cities more human. He was the charisma, the face of the firm. He could walk into a room of cynical developers and make them believe in the power of a vertical garden. And I was the quiet architect. I was the one who stayed up until dawn, perfecting the airflow ratios, the structural integrity, and the sustainability metrics. I trusted him with everything. I gave him the keys to my bank accounts, the passwords to my servers, and most importantly, I gave him my mother's legacy. She had been a pioneer in landscape design, and I had digitized her life's work, designs that were decades ahead of their time. I remember a specific Tuesday. The sun was hitting the studio floor, and we had just landed our first major municipal contract. Marcus hugged me, his eyes bright with what I thought was shared triumph. He said, "We're a team for life, Lil. I've always got your back." I believed him. I didn't see the way he was slowly BCCing himself on every private client email. I didn't notice that he was registering the patents in his name only for administrative ease. I was too busy building our future to notice he was busy building an exit strategy. I thought we were building a cathedral, he was building a getaway car. The end didn't come with a shout. It came with a locked door. On a Monday morning that felt like any other, my key didn't turn. I thought it was a mistake, a jam tumbler. But then I saw the notice on the glass. The locks had been changed. My email access was revoked. My bank accounts, the ones holding our operating capital, had been drained and closed. Marcus hadn't just left. He had rebranded. Over the weekend, he moved our entire office into a luxury suite across town. He took the greenhouse, renamed it Marcus Design Group, and sent a cease and desist letter to my home address, claiming that I was the one trying to steal his intellectual property. The next 2 years were a slow descent into madness. I was obsessed. I wasn't just trying to get my money back, I was trying to get my justice. I spent every waking hour checking his social media, watching him win awards for designs I had spent months perfecting in my garage. I watched him give interviews about his vision for sustainable cities while I sat in a dark apartment, eating cold cereal because I couldn't afford the heat. I became a debt collector for a debt that could never be paid. My friends stopped calling because every conversation was a 40-minute rant about Marcus. My sister told me I was stuck, and I screamed at her. I told her she didn't understand. I was in the right. The law was on my side. But being right felt like being buried alive. I was grinding my teeth so hard at night that my jaw was constantly bruised. I had become a version of the very people I hated, bitter, cold, and hyper-focused on destruction. I was locked in a cage of my own making, and Marcus held the key, even though he wasn't even in the room. He owned my thoughts, my health, and my future. It happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. Exactly 3 years to the day after he locked me out. I was standing in a pharmacy line, waiting for a prescription for the migraines that had become my constant companions. I saw a man in a charcoal suit at the front of the line. He had the same gait as Marcus. The same way of tilting his head. My heart didn't just beat, it thundered. I felt a surge of pure, hot adrenaline and hatred so intense I felt sick to my stomach. I was ready to scream, to lung, to finally say all the things I had rehearsed for 1,000 nights. The man turned around. It wasn't Marcus. It was just a stranger buying cough drops. I walked out to my car, shaking, and I sat there as the rain hammered against the roof. I looked in the rearview mirror, and for the first time in years, I really saw myself. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Her eyes were dull. Her face was etched with lines of perpetual anger. She looked haunted. I realized then, Marcus was living his life. He was out there eating expensive dinners, sleeping soundly, and building his empire. He wasn't thinking about me. He wasn't suffering because I was angry. He was free. And I was in a rain-soaked car, letting a ghost take my health, my beauty, and my peace every single day. I said it out loud to the empty car, he already took the company. Why am I letting him take today, too? Forgiveness didn't come as a warm, fuzzy feeling. It came as a cold, hard business decision. I realized that if I wanted to be free, I had to stop waiting for him to apologize. He was never going to say, "I'm sorry." He was never going to admit he was wrong. And if my happiness depended on his confession, I was his prisoner for life. I decided, right then, to stop being a debt collector. I decided to cancel the debt, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved to walk away from the ledger. The joy of forgiveness is a secret because it's so quiet. It's not a parade or a firework display. It's the absence of a noise you've gotten so used to that you forgot what silence sounded like. The first night after I truly decided to let go, I slept for 10 hours without waking up. When I woke up, the first thing I thought about wasn't a court filing or a revenge fantasy. It was a sketch. I wanted to draw a window. A simple, elegant window that let in the light. I went to my lawyer that afternoon and told him to drop the lawsuit. He thought I was having a breakdown. "Lily, we have the metadata. We can win this," he argued. "I already won," I told him. "I got my brain back. I'm not spending another 5 years in a courtroom trying to get blood from a stone." That's the secret joy. When you forgive, you reclaim the massive amount of creative energy you were using to maintain that fire. I took that energy and I started over. I moved to Seattle. I founded Sinclair and Sage. Within a year, my new designs that Marcus couldn't touch because they came from a heart that was finally at peace, won the municipal contract for the Olympic canopy. Today, when I see his name in a trade journal, my heart stays still. It doesn't race. It doesn't fill with acid. It's like looking at a stranger's name in a phone book. That is the ultimate triumph, indifference. He has no power over my pulse. I am the architect of my own joy now, and the foundation is built on the peace I chose for myself. I am light. I am free. And I am finally happy. I know what you're thinking right now. You're sitting there and you're thinking about the person who did it to you. The one who broke the promise, the one who stole the credit, the one who walked away when you needed them most. You're thinking, "Lily, you don't know what they took from me." You're right. I don't. I don't know the depth of your scar. But I know what you're still giving them. Every minute you spend in anger is a minute of your life that belongs to them. You don't have to call them. You don't have to tell them they're forgiven. You don't even have to like them. You just have to tell yourself that the debt is cancelled. You have to decide that you are no longer willing to pay interest on a tragedy you didn't ask for. If this story helped you catch your breath today, if it helped you see a way out of the dark, please share it with someone who is currently carrying a stone they need to drop. Subscribe to this journey of resilience, because we are building a community where we choose peace over being right. Leave a comment below and just type one word, free. Let's start the movement of letting go together. Let's reclaim our energy. Let's reclaim our lives. I'm Lily. And I want you to know, it is a beautiful day to be light.
Hello, dear soul. I'm so grateful you're here. Wherever you are in this moment, whether you're sitting quietly, walking, resting, or lying down, I want you to breathe gently and allow yourself to feel safe. Let this moment be a pause from everything that has weighed on your shoulders. Let this moment be a soft, warm blanket wrapped around your heart. Let this moment be a sacred whisper from heaven. Because the message I am about to share with you is one Jesus has been longing for you to hear. Your miracle is near. Yes, nearer than you think. Nearer than your fears suggest. Nearer than your doubts whisper. Nearer than your circumstances appear. So come with me through this gentle journey. And let your spirit rest in hope again. Before miracles come, Jesus often invites us to stillness. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels safe. A holy quietness where your soul can breathe. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest." Imagine him standing beside you now. His eyes soft, full of compassion. His presence warm, calming, steady. You don't have to be strong in his presence. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to hide your exhaustion. He already knows. And in this sacred stillness, something happens. The shoulders drop. The breathing deepens. The heart softens. Your miracle often begins in moments just like this. Waiting can feel like silence. But heaven is never still. Let me tell you about Louise. For 8 months she prayed for a job while caring for 2 little children. Every application, every interview, nothing. She felt invisible. One night she knelt beside her bed and said, "Lord, if you are working, I can't see it." A quiet whisper came to her heart. "You don't need to see it. You only need to trust me." 3 days later, she received an email. A position she never applied for. From a company she didn't know. Offering her a job with better pay and better hours than any she had sought. She later discovered her resume had been forwarded by someone she barely knew. Someone she once helped years ago. A seed she forgot she planted. God had been working the whole time. Just not in the ways she expected. Your prayers are doing more than you think. Your faith is moving more than you see. Your obedience is planting seeds you don't even remember sowing. Unseen is not undone. Delayed is not denied. Quiet does not mean abandoned. God works best in places our eyes cannot reach. Hope doesn't always shine brightly. Sometimes hope flickers softly in the dark. Let me share the story of Jonas. He battled addiction for years. Recovery, relapse, shame, it was a cycle he felt trapped in. He believed God had grown tired of him. But one night, while sitting alone on a sidewalk, he felt someone sit beside him. He turned. No one was there. But he felt warmth. And a voice deep within whispered, "I have not given up on you." That moment changed everything. Jonas sought help, humbled himself. And today he leads a support group for others walking the same road. Hope visited him in the shadows. Hope found him in the place he felt most unworthy. Sometimes the miracle is not the situation changing instantly. Sometimes the miracle is Jesus stepping into the darkness with you. And if you felt like hope is distant, Jesus wants you to know. He is not distant at all. He is closer than breath. Closer than thought. Closer than pain. Every step you've taken. Every tear you've cried. Every night you've endured. Jesus has walked with you. Let me tell you about Elena. She lost her husband after 32 years of marriage. The grief was unbearable. Every room felt empty. Every day felt heavy. One afternoon, she sat in her living room crying when she felt, as she described it, someone sitting beside me, like a comforting presence. She said, "I didn't hear words, but I felt peace. A peace that didn't make sense. A presence that held her through the tears. A presence that helped her stand again. A presence that reminded her, you are not alone. You may not see Jesus, but his footsteps have always been beside yours. Sometimes he carries you when you don't know how to take the next step. Sometimes he strengthens you when you don't know how to breathe. Sometimes He surrounds you when you don't know how to go on. You have survived every storm because Jesus sailed through it with you. Life has moments that shift everything. Moments when God says, "Now." Turning points rarely announce themselves. They arrive softly, quietly. Like sunrise. Let me tell you about Carlo. A man who struggled with debt for years. Bills piled up. His business failed. He felt hopeless. One night, he surrendered. He said, "Lord, if you want me to start again, give me courage." In the middle of his prayer, he felt a sudden peace. A peace that told him God was not done. The very next week, a former client called him out of nowhere, offering him a new contract that opened the door for everything to turn around. Carlo said, "My breakthrough arrived the moment I allowed God to take control of my fear." Your turning point may already be unfolding. Even now. Even in this moment. Heaven shifts quietly. Miracles begin invisibly. Breakthroughs whisper before they roar. And Jesus is whispering to you. Things are about to change. Your miracle is near. Nearer than your doubts. Nearer than your fears. Nearer than your timeline. Let me share the story of the couple, Marco and Diane. For 7 years, they prayed for a child. 7 years of doctors, tears, disappointment. They almost gave up. One evening, Diane had a dream. She saw Jesus standing in a bright field holding a little girl. He smiled and said, "I am preparing her for you." Months later, after 7 long years, their miracle arrived. Today, their daughter's laughter fills their home like sunlight. Your miracle may not look like theirs. But Jesus has something prepared with your name on it. A breakthrough designed for you. A blessing shaped for your life. It is coming. It is on the way. It has already begun. I want to take you deeper now, deeper into the living, breathing truth that Jesus is still moving, still healing, still rescuing, still restoring lives today. These stories I'm about to share aren't distant legends or tales from long ago. They happen to ordinary people, just like you, just like me, people who were tired, broken, and hanging on by a thread. Maybe as you listen, something inside you will whisper, "If God did it for them, maybe He will do it for me." And I want to tell you, yes. He absolutely can. I once met a man named Andrew. His life had collapsed all at once, his business failed, his marriage was falling apart, and he felt completely abandoned. One night, he reached the end of himself. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring into the darkness and whispering, "I can't do this anymore." He didn't pray. He didn't even look for God. He simply broke. And that's when something happened. He told me the room slowly filled with a gentle warmth, the kind that feels alive, like someone had stepped into the silence with him. And in the quiet, he heard a voice, not from the outside, but deep within. "I am still here." He collapsed to the floor in tears, not out of fear, but because he felt seen, loved, held. Today, Andrew's marriage is restored, his purpose renewed. When he looks back, he says, "Jesus didn't fix everything instantly. He gave me Himself. And that changed everything." There was a mother I spoke with, Liza, whose young child was rushed to the hospital. The doctors said nothing, but fear filled her lungs like cold air. She sat alone outside the ICU, hugging her knees, whispering, "Jesus, please." She felt like the world was collapsing. But then, as a nurse walked by, not even looking at her, she softly hummed a worship song from Liza's childhood. "Because He lives, I can face tomorrow." It was as if time paused. That simple melody pierced through her fear and filled her with a calm she had not felt in days. Not a promise that everything would be perfect, but a promise she was not alone. Later that day, her child's condition dramatically improved. The doctor said, "We can't explain the sudden change." But Liza just smiled through tears and whispered, I know who walked into that room. Then there was Reuben, a young man trapped in the cycle of addiction. He told me he reached a point where he felt like he was losing himself. One day, lying on the cold floor of his apartment, he whispered a broken plea. God, if you're real, I need you. He said what happened next felt as if someone knelt beside him. He didn't see anything, but the air changed, thickened with peace. And he heard a voice inside him. You are not your mistakes. Get up. That moment wasn't a command, it was a rescue. Today, Reuben is free. Clean. Restored. He says the miracle wasn't quitting. The miracle was that Jesus reached him in the dark and lifted him back into the light. There was also a woman named Maya who believed her life was over. She had been abandoned by the person she trusted most. Heartbroken, lost, and drowning in betrayal, she stopped praying. She stopped hoping. But one night, she dreamt she was sitting alone in an empty field, gray sky, dead grass, complete silence. In the distance, a man walked toward her. She couldn't see his face, but her soul knew exactly who he was. When he reached her, he said just one sentence. This is not your ending. She woke up trembling and crying. Days later, she slowly stepped back into church after nearly a year. She said the moment she entered, it felt like warm oil poured over her shattered heart. Her life didn't change overnight. But it began to. Today, she's rebuilt, stronger, softer, deeper. She tells people, Jesus didn't just heal my heart. He rewrote my story. I once heard a young couple share something remarkable. They were months behind on rent, unable to sleep, terrified of losing their home. They prayed every night. Lord, please help us. But there seemed to be no answer. Then one morning, as they stepped outside, they found an unmarked white envelope tucked beneath their door. Inside was the exact amount they needed. No name. No note. No explanation. The wife told me, tears in her voice. It wasn't a stranger. It was Jesus using someone's hands. Another story comes from a man named Joel who fought a heavy battle with depression. Every day felt like a weight pressing on his soul, making it hard even to breathe. He told me he hadn't prayed in months, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't find the words. One afternoon, as he sat in quiet despair, he suddenly felt these words gently rise inside him. Breathe. I am with you. Just that. 5 words. But they stopped the spiral. He opened his Bible, almost by instinct, and the first verse his eyes fell on was, Come to me, all who are weary. That day marked a shift. Not an instant cure, but a reassurance that Jesus was climbing into the darkness with him. Today, he's healing. And he says, I'm still here because Jesus didn't give up on me. A woman named Grace once shared how she was grieving the loss of someone she loved deeply. Nights were the hardest. She would lie awake, staring into the darkness, feeling crushed by sorrow. One night, as she cried softly, she noticed a soft glow slowly filling one corner of her room. Not harsh, not artificial, but warm, gentle, comforting. And in that light, she felt an embrace, not physical, but unmistakably real. Emma, she told me, I didn't see Jesus with my eyes, but I felt him with my soul. That night became the beginning of her healing. A father once told me how his teenage son had run away from home after a painful argument. Days passed with no sign of him. The father felt helpless, tormented by fear. One night, unable to sleep, he knelt by his couch and prayed. Jesus, bring my son home. Please. He must have cried himself to sleep because the next thing he knew, he heard knocking at the door. When he opened it, his son was standing there, crying. The boy said something pulled him, to come home. The father told me, Jesus didn't just return my son to me. He restored our family. Then there was Claire, a woman who battled chronic pain for years. Pain that drained her joy, her strength, and her hope. One night, as she lay awake whispering, "Jesus, I'm so tired," she suddenly felt a gentle hand hold hers. Not imagined. Not dreamed. A real touch. Peace washed over her body from head to toe like warm water filling every empty space. She wasn't instantly healed that night. But she woke up with a strength she hadn't felt in years. Today, she is completely healed. Her doctors can't explain it. But she can. As I share these stories with you, stories of comfort, rescue, whispers of love, unexpected miracles, I want you to hear what they're really saying. Jesus hasn't stopped moving. Jesus hasn't stopped healing. Jesus hasn't stopped reaching into the lives of ordinary people. And if your heart feels even a small spark of hope right now, maybe it's because your miracle is drawing near too. Hold on. Don't let go. Don't give up. Your story is not finished. Jesus is still writing. Let's pray together. Jesus. For the precious soul listening now, I ask for your presence to fill their heart. Wash over them with peace. Wrap them in comfort. Lift every fear. Lift every burden. Lord, release the miracle they've been waiting for. Let the breakthrough come swiftly. Let healing flow through every part of their life. Their body, their home, their mind, their relationships, their finances, their future. Close the wrong doors. Open the right ones. Surround them with protection. Speak to their heart in ways they can understand. And above all, Jesus. Let them feel your nearness. Amen. Place your hand on your heart for a moment. Feel your heartbeat. Steady, alive, full of purpose. You are stepping into a new season. You are walking toward doors that will open easily. You are approaching blessings that will surprise you. You are moving toward prayers that will finally be answered. Walk gently. Walk bravely. Walk with expectation. Because Jesus is already ahead of you. Preparing. Aligning. Arranging. Protecting. Guiding. Loving. Hold this truth close. Your miracle is near. Your breakthrough is near. Your healing is near. Jesus is already making the way. And soon, very soon, you will look back and say, God was working all along. If this message touched your heart today, if even one testimony stirred something inside you, then don't let this moment pass. Hope is alive. Jesus is near. And your miracle may be closer than you think. If you felt his presence. If you heard his whisper. If you sensed him moving in your story. Let this be the moment you respond. Like, share, and subscribe so these messages of faith, healing, and hope can reach more hearts that are hurting, more souls that feel forgotten, more people who need to know that Jesus still moves today. And if you need prayer, if you're believing for your own miracle, write, Jesus, I trust you, in the comments. Not as a ritual, but as a declaration of faith. Someone may find this video at the exact moment they're ready to give up. And your simple act of sharing could be the very thing that leads them back to hope, back to healing, back to Jesus. So don't keep this message to yourself. Let's spread hope together. Let's shine light together. Let's believe for miracles together.
My name is Oliver. And if you had met me a few years ago, you wouldn't recognize the man speaking to you now. People used to call me calm, gentle, patient, someone who gave others the benefit of the doubt. But all it takes is one betrayal, one moment when your world collapses, to reveal what you're really made of. I used to believe prayer was a last resort for desperate people. But when my life fell apart, when revenge wrapped around my heart like chains, when anger threatened to own me, I discovered that prayer wasn't soft. It was war. Tonight I want to take you into the darkest season of my life. The season when I lost everything I trusted, and found the God I ignored for years. This is the story of the battles no one sees, the wounds we hide, the fights we wage in silence, and how prayer became the weapon that changed my life. I grew up in a small rural town where everybody knew everybody. People waved at each other from porches. They brought food when someone got sick. We believed in second chances, morning coffee, and handshakes that sealed promises. So when I decided to start a construction business, I partnered with someone I trusted like family. My childhood friend, Marcus. We were nothing alike. He was loud, I was calm. He lived fast, I lived steady. He had charm, I had discipline. But somehow, we worked well together. Two young dreamers, building houses during the week and dreaming bigger every weekend. Our motto was always the same. If one rises, both rise. I truly believe that. Business started slow, but eventually the jobs came. We built decks, renovated kitchens, repaired storm damage. People loved our work. Clients began recommending us everywhere. Soon enough, we weren't the small-town rookies anymore. We were known. But success has a strange way of magnifying what's already inside a person. And while I carried gratitude, Marcus carried hunger. The dangerous kind. I remember the first time something felt wrong. We were working on a lake house renovation for a wealthy client. It was our biggest project yet. Life-changing money. One afternoon, I found Marcus in the garage speaking on the phone in a low voice. He said, "No, Oliver won't know. He never checks the transfer statements." He didn't see me. I didn't say anything. I told myself I misunderstood. I told myself we were brothers. He'd never betray me. But deep inside, something quietly snapped. A hairline fracture in trust. I wish I had confronted it then. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe the war inside me wouldn't have grown so loud. But I ignored the whisper. That was my mistake. 3 months passed. Business looked good, projects flowed steadily. But then, the messages started. A client claiming they had paid for materials twice. Another demanding a refund for work they said I refused to finish. A supplier accusing me of delaying payments intentionally. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. Until the morning everything unraveled. I woke up to 36 missed calls and 11 angry voicemails. People I'd never met shouting that I had scammed them. That I was a thief. I confronted Marcus immediately. I remember standing in his driveway, trembling with confusion and anger. I said, "Marcus, what's going on? People are saying we took money and ran. You talked to them, right?" He didn't look panicked. He didn't look worried. He smirked. That smirk felt like someone twisting a knife right into my spine. He shrugged and said, "I told them the truth. You took the money, Ollie. You should have handled it better." For a moment, the world stopped. Like sound had been sucked out of the air. Then I whispered, "You set me up?" And he laughed. Actually laughed. This deep, unbothered, almost amused laugh. He said, "You were holding me back. I needed a way out. This was easier. Easier." I can't describe what I felt at that moment. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was disbelief so sharp it burned. But disbelief turned into something darker. When I checked our company account and saw the withdrawals, the forged signatures, fabricated invoices, thousands gone. My name stamped across every fraudulent transaction. And Marcus. He had already opened a new company. New office. New staff. Clients transferred to him. All while I was left to drown. My reputation shattered overnight. No one wanted to hire me. Suppliers refused credit. I woke up each day to new accusations. Even my employees, people I treated like family, walked out. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone broken. A failure. A man stabbed by the person he trusted most. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was how the whole town believed him. Whispers followed me everywhere. At the grocery store, at church, at the gas station. I started avoiding people altogether. Closing the curtains. Letting calls go unanswered. And that's when something inside me shifted. The pain began turning into anger. Dark, consuming anger. I started fantasizing about revenge. About exposing him. Humiliating him. Destroying him piece by piece. I told myself it was justice. But deep inside, it was hatred. Pure hatred. I lost sleep. Lost weight. Lost peace. I became a prisoner in my own home. A man rehearsing revenge in the dark. There was one night. A night I will never forget. I had just received a letter from an attorney. Marcus had filed a lawsuit against me. For breach of contract. Malpractice. And defamation. It was surreal. The thief accusing the victim. I felt my chest tighten. My breathing shortened. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the papers. I fell to the floor. Not from weakness, but from the weight of everything collapsing at once. And for the first time in years, I prayed. Not gently. Not poetically. I cried out. God, if you're there, please help me. I can't do this anymore. It wasn't a holy prayer. It was a terrified one. But it was real. And God meets people in real places. The next morning, I heard a knock on my door. Slow, deliberate knocking. Not the angry pounding I had grown accustomed to. When I opened it, I found Mr. Ramos, a retired lawyer who lived 2 houses down. A quiet man. Always sweeping his porch at sunrise. He said, "Oliver, you've been on my mind. I couldn't sleep last night. Something told me to talk to you." I didn't know what to say. I just handed him the lawsuit papers silently. He read them carefully, his eyebrows lowering with every line. Then he looked at me and said, "Do you trust me?" And I whispered, "Right now, you're the only person I can." He nodded once and said, "Then let's fight this." What happened next felt like watching God quietly rebuild my life piece by piece. Mr. Ramos spent days going through every document, email, contract, bank statement. Things I was too emotionally exhausted to even look at anymore. One afternoon, he showed up at my house with a binder thicker than my arm. He placed it on my table and said, "Oliver, your partner wasn't careful. He left everything behind. Evidence of forged signatures. Manipulated spreadsheets. False client reports. Payments rerouted to his private account. The truth was right there. Hidden but undeniable." I sat there staring at the pages. My heart pounding. My hands trembling. For the first time since the betrayal. I felt hope. But with that hope came something unexpected. The bitterness inside me began cracking. Every night I prayed again. Honestly. Desperately. Sometimes through tears. I didn't just pray for justice. I prayed for peace. Clarity. Strength. And slowly, something shifted. Revenge stopped feeling satisfying. It started feeling empty. I realized Marcus may have attacked my reputation, my work, my stability. But I had attacked myself far worse. By letting hatred own me. There was a moment, a quiet, sacred moment, that changed everything. I was sitting alone in my living room late at night. The only light came from the small lamp beside me. The binder of evidence lay open on the coffee table. I whispered, "God, I'm scared. I don't want to hate anymore. Please fix whatever's broken inside me." And I felt it. A warmth in my chest. Like someone placing a hand over my heart. A calm I hadn't felt in weeks. A whisper, not audible, but undeniable. "Let me fight for you." It didn't erase the pain. It didn't magically fix everything. But suddenly I knew. I didn't have to fight alone. From that day on, I prayed every morning. Every night. Before every meeting. Before every legal discussion. I prayed when I was afraid. I prayed when I was angry. I prayed when I didn't know what to do. Prayer didn't change my circumstances immediately. But it changed me. It steadied me, calmed me, guided me. And when the day of the hearing came, I walked into that courtroom not as a broken man, but as a man backed by God. The courtroom was cold, silent, intimidating. Marcus sat at his table, looking confident, smirking the same smirk that once shattered me. I felt the old anger try to rise, but I breathed deeply and whispered a short prayer in my heart. God, go before me. Then the hearing began. Mr. Ramos presented everything, methodically, clearly, powerfully. Every lie Marcus told became exposed, every hidden file revealed, every forged signature traced back to him. I watched his confidence drain from his face. His smirk disappeared. His hands shook. His eyes darted nervously around the room. At one point, he looked at me. Not with arrogance, but with fear. By the end of the hearing, the truth was undeniable. The judge dismissed his lawsuit, placed full responsibility on him, ordered restitution, launched an investigation into his new company. The man who tried to destroy me fell into the pit he dug for me. But here's the miracle. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Not because Marcus fell, but because hatred no longer held me. God had fought the battle I couldn't. As I walked out of the courtroom, Marcus hurried behind me. I could hear his shoes tapping urgently against the floor. He called out, "Oliver!" I turned. His face was pale, his voice shaky. "All the arrogance, gone," he said. "I don't get it. You should have destroyed me. You could have fed the fire. Why didn't you?" I looked at him and answered, "Because revenge wasn't mine to take." He swallowed hard, his eyes suddenly wet. Then he whispered, "I thought you'd stay down forever." And I said, "I got up because God pulled me up." He stared at the ground, as if realizing for the first time what he had become. I walked away, not in anger, but in peace. That was the real triumph. Life didn't go back to normal overnight. Rebuilding my reputation took time. Rebuilding my business took patience. Rebuilding my heart took prayer. But month after month, God restored everything I had lost. And more. New clients came. Better opportunities opened. People who once avoided me apologized. Some even asked how I stayed standing. And I always said the same thing. It wasn't me. Prayer carried me. Today, when I look back at that season, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Because the betrayal that broke me also rebuilt me. The man I became through prayer is stronger, calmer, wiser, and I carry this truth with me. Sometimes God allows unseen battles, so we can discover His unseen strength. I'm Oliver, and prayer didn't just change my life. It saved it. If you're fighting your own unseen battles, don't fight them alone. Let God step into the spaces where your strength runs out. If this story moved you, if it gave you hope or reminded you that you're not alone, like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today. And subscribe for more stories of faith, redemption, and victory. Because battles are real. But so is God.